Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're tackling something that honestly almost every single one of us struggles with. Right now, at this very second, somewhere inside your brain, a tiny chemical is deciding whether you are finally going to finish that big long-term project you've been putting off, or if you're just going to open your phone and scroll for 5 more minutes. We constantly find ourselves choosing these instant distractions over our most important goals. Okay, let's dive into this, because what we're about to uncover completely changed how I view my own daily habits, and I really think it's going to do the same for you.
It is incredibly frustrating, isn't it? You sit down, you've got your coffee, you open your laptop, and you have every intention of working on that dream business or studying for that big exam. But then, almost like magic, 30 minutes just vanish, and you're watching some random video on social media. So why does the phone always seem to win? Well, it turns out, choosing your phone over your project, that's not a moral failing. We're actually experiencing a literal biological hijacking.
Seriously, it's not laziness, it's not a lack of willpower, and it's definitely not because you don't care about your goals. What we're actually battling here is a 200,000-year-old survival system that's deeply embedded in our brains. This system was designed to keep our ancient ancestors alive by constantly seeking out scarce resources. It was absolutely fundamentally never built for a modern world filled with Netflix, endless social feeds, and instant push notifications. We are basically running ancient software in a modern environment.
Section 1. The Great Dopamine Myth. Anticipation, not reward.
To really understand how this ancient software is glitching in our modern world, we have to look at the main culprit, dopamine. Now, if you ask almost anyone on the street what dopamine is, they'll probably tell you it's the pleasure chemical. But actually, scratch that. That is a complete myth. Dopamine isn't about pleasure at all. Reality shows us it's the chemical of anticipation. It actually doesn't fire when you finally get the reward. It fires right before you get it, when your brain is predicting that something good is about to happen. It's all about the craving, not the satisfaction.
Let's look at exactly how scientists figured this out. Back in 1997, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz ran this absolutely fascinating experiment on monkeys. He started by giving the monkeys a sweet juice reward paired with a light turning on. On day 1, the dopamine spiked exactly when the juice arrived. Makes total sense, right? But then the repetition begins. By day 30, something completely unexpected and honestly kind of strange happened. The dopamine spike actually moved. It stopped firing when the monkeys drank the juice and started firing the exact moment the light turned on, the cue that merely predicted the juice. And this brilliantly illustrates how our brains become wired to chase the cue itself.
So, bringing this back to your daily life, the notification sound on your smartphone, that is your modern-day light cue. This is literally the entire secret to modern distraction. Your phone isn't addictive just because of the content on it, it's addictive because of that notification ping. Your brain has learned this super simple equation, cue equals reward, so it obsessively chases that cue. This completely explains why we can mindlessly scroll for 40 minutes chasing those empty rewards and actually feel worse afterward. The dopamine hit came entirely from the anticipation of the next post, not from any of those posts actually satisfying us.
Section 2. Why big goals fail. The biological mismatch.
So now that we know we're biologically wired to chase immediate cues, let's look at how this creates massive friction between our evolutionary biology and our modern ambitions. Research from Brian Cutson at Stanford University perfectly explains why our long-term goals feel so incredibly heavy. See, dopamine spikes are strongest when a reward feels close, when it's slightly uncertain, and when it's immediate. Let's contrast checking Instagram with, say, a 5-year goal, like starting a business or getting a degree. Social media, the reward is close, the content is uncertain, and the hit is immediate. A 5-year goal? Well, the reward is distant, it's certain in theory, but feels very uncertain in daily practice, and it is definitely not immediate. This explains why the brain literally generates way more dopamine for a 2-minute scroll than a 2-hour focused work session.
So the crucial point here is that we're fighting a massive biological mismatch. We often try to use sheer willpower to force our brains to care about a 5-year timeline, but you know what? Our brain's reward system only has a ruler that measures how close, how certain, and how soon. Willpower alone rarely works over the long term because those distant goals are at a massive neurological disadvantage. It's basically an unfair fight.
Section 3. Rewiring your reward system. Fixing the mismatch.
But hey, we aren't going to stay stuck in this trap. Now that we understand the mechanism, we can actually hijack it back. Let's look at a science-backed toolkit from neuroscientists and behavioral researchers to fix this biological mismatch. We've got a 3-step framework here. And honestly, it really helps to look at these not as cheesy productivity hacks, but as literal dopamine engineering. We are going to intentionally program the brain's anticipation system. Step 1. shrink the timeline. Step 2, make progress visible. And Step 3, remove the cue. Let's break each of these down.
Step 1 is all about shrinking the timeline. If you tell your brain, today I need to build my business, it often panics, right? It feels way too big, too distant. Instead, it's incredibly helpful to just say, today I'm going to write for just 2 minutes. Dr. B.J. Fogg's habit formation research at Stanford shows that tasks small enough to complete in under 2 minutes create a powerful completion signal. That tiny win provides a small, real dopamine hit that the brain begins to associate with the larger goal, strengthening the entire behavior chain over time without you feeling totally overwhelmed.
Step 2 is making progress visible, and this relies on a fascinating psychological principle called the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, our brains are hardwired to feel this underlying anxiety and unease around incomplete progress. We actually remember unfinished tasks far more than finished ones. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how visual habit trackers, like crossing a day off a calendar or keeping a streak alive on an app, give our brains that close and certain signal they desperately crave. It takes that natural neurological unease and transforms it right into forward motion. Seeing that checkmark? That is quite literally dopamine engineering.
Finally, Step 3. Remove the cue. Remember Wolfram Schultz's monkeys? Dopamine attaches to cues. If your phone is sitting right next to you on your desk while you try to work, you have an active cue reward loop just pulsing in your peripheral vision. Research from the University of Texas found that the mere presence of your smartphone, even if it's completely powered off, measurably reduces your cognitive performance. Why? Because a portion of your brain's processing power is actively dedicating resources to not checking it. We don't necessarily need more discipline to ignore the phone. We often just need to put the phone in another room. Literally, just remove the cue entirely.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this massive number, 200,000. We are operating a 200,000-year-old chemical system, and we're trying to operate it in a modern world engineered by billion-dollar tech companies who hire thousands of engineers specifically to exploit that exact chemical system. Let this slightly uncomfortable truth be your relief. You were never lazy. The game was just rigged against our biology from the very start.
When we look at people who seem to have this, superhuman discipline, it really helps to realize they aren't necessarily fighting their dopamine system harder than the rest of us. No, they've simply learned how to feed their system correctly. They feed it small, frequent, visible wins that point toward their bigger goals, rather than letting their attention get hijacked by empty notifications that point nowhere. Shrink the task, track the progress, and remove the cue. Because ultimately, that's not motivation, that is neuroscience.
I really hope this explainer has shifted how you view your own habits and daily struggles. Understanding the science behind our actions is such a powerful first step to truly mastering them. So thinking about your own life, what is the one habit you're going to shrink down to 2 minutes and start today? Think about it, engineer your environment, and see if you can get that dopamine working for you instead of against you. Thanks so much for exploring this with me, and keep learning.